A developing tropical low in the Coral Sea, heavy rainfall potential, severe weather warnings across Queensland's coast. That is what we're re-examining today. I've gone through the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, analysed the models and looked at what this system might do over the weekend and into next week. There is significant uncertainty here, but the potential impacts are worth understanding. Let me be clear from the start. This is not a cyclone. Not yet anyway. It's a tropical low. The distinction matters. A tropical low is an area of low pressure in the tropics that hasn't developed the organised structure and wind speeds to be classified as a cyclone, but tropical lows can still produce heavy rain, strong winds and rough seas, and they can intensify into cyclones under the right conditions. The system S currently sitting northeast of Cairns out in the Coral Sea. As of the latest update from the Bureau, it is producing scattered showers and thunderstorms across its circulation. Sea surface temperatures in that area are sitting around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That is warm enough to support development. The question is whether the atmospheric conditions will allow it to strengthen. Looking at the access model, the Australian model from the Bureau, it is showing this low tracking generally westward over the weekend. That would bring it closer to the Queensland coast. The timing has it potentially making its closest approach to the coast Sunday into Monday. The European model is showing something similar, though it is keeping the system slightly further offshore. The GFS, the American global model, has been a bit all over the shop with this one. Earlier runs had it developing more significantly. Latest runs are more conservative. That model disagreement tells you something important. There is genuine uncertainty here. When models don't agree, it means the atmosphere hasn't made up its mind yet. Small changes in steering currents, in wind shear, in moisture availability, any of these factors can shift the outcome significantly. Right now, across far north Queensland, conditions have been hot and humid. Mount Carbine recorded 34 degrees at 10 this morning with 85% humidity. Overnight, minimum of 28 degrees. That's oppressive. When it doesn't cool down overnight, there's no relief from the heat. Your body doesn't get a chance to recover. Darwin has been copping steady rain since 6 this morning and it's showing no signs of letting up. That is the monsoon trough doing its work across the top end. The immediate concern for this weekend is rainfall. Even if this low doesn't develop into a cyclone, it's going to pump moisture onto the coast. The Bureau's rainfall forecasts are showing potential totals of 100 to 200 millimetres across parts of the North Queensland coast between Friday and Monday. Some areas could see more if thunderstorms train over the same location repeatedly. 200 millimetres in 3 or 4 days is significant rain. It's not catastrophic. You've seen worse, but it's enough to cause localised flooding, particularly in low-lying areas and catchments that respond quickly to heavy rain. Creeks and rivers will rise. Roads can become impassable. If you're in a flood-prone area, now is the time to review your plan. Know your evacuation routes. Have essentials ready if you need to move quickly. The coastal areas most at risk stretch from about Cooktown down to Townsville. That's the zone where moisture convergence will be strongest as the low approaches. Cairns sits right in the middle of that zone. You are likely to see periods of heavy rain, particularly Saturday night into Sunday. The rain to be constant. It'll come in waves as rain bands rotate through. But when it's heavy, it'll be properly heavy. Wind is the other consideration. If this remains a tropical low, winds will stay below gale force. That is below 63 kilometres per hour sustained. You'll get stronger gusts, particularly in thunderstorms. Coastal locations might see gusts to 80 kilometres per hour. That's enough to bring down tree branches, create dangerous conditions on the water and make driving difficult, especially for high-sided vehicles. If the system intensifies into a Category 1 cyclone, those winds increase. Category 1 is sustained winds of 63 to 88 kilometres per hour with gusts to 125 kilometres per hour. That is when you start seeing more widespread damage. Roofing iron can lift, power lines can come down, trees that are already weakened by wet soil become more vulnerable. The Bureau will be watching several factors over the next 24 to 48 hours. First, wind shear. That is the change in wind speed and direction with height. High wind shear disrupts tropical system development. It tears apart the circulation. Right now, shear is moderate. If it decreases, the low has a better chance of strengthening. If it increases, development becomes less likely. Second, they re-watching sea surface temperatures along the track. The low needs to stay over warm water to maintain or increase its intensity. If it tracks too close to the coast, it can interact with land, which disrupts the circulation and cuts off the moisture supply. Third, steering currents. What is going to guide this system? There's a ridge of high pressure to the south, that S acting like a wall, keeping the low from tracking southward. As the ridge weakens or shifts, the low S track will adjust. Small changes in the ridge position translate to big changes in where the low goes. Looking at the broader pattern, this isn't unusual for mid-January. We're in the heart of cyclone season. The monsoon trough is active. Sea surface temperatures are at their peak. The atmosphere is primed for tropical development. What is unusual this year is the number of systems we're seeing. Multiple lows developing in quick succession. The Coral Sea S being particularly active. For those in North Queensland, you know the drill. UV dealt with tropical lows and cyclones before, but it's worth going through preparations anyway, particularly if you've got mates or family who are new to the area or haven't experienced one of these systems yet. Secure loose items around your property. Anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or brought inside. Outdoor furniture, trampolines, tools, rubbish bins. Check your gutters and downpipes. Make sure they re-clear. Heavy rain with blocked gutters means water pooling on your roof, which can lead to leaks or structural damage. If you've got a generator, make sure it's fueled and working. Power outages are common with these systems. Trees come down onto lines. Substations get flooded. It might be a few hours, might be a few days before power is restored. Stock up on essentials, but don't panic buy. You don't need 6 months of supplies. You need enough to get through 3 or 4 days comfortably. Water, non-perishable food, medications, batteries, torch, first aid kit. If you've got specific dietary needs or medical requirements, make sure you've got enough to cover a week. Fuel your vehicle. Keep the tank full. If you need to evacuate, the last thing you want is to be searching for an open service station. And in the aftermath, fuel can be hard to come by if supply trucks can't get through. For those with livestock, make sure animals have access to high ground and shelter. Check fences. Secure feed supplies. If flooding SA risk, move stock early. Don T, wait until water's rising. If you're on the water, Don TB. This is not the weekend for a fishing trip. Seas are going to be rough. Winds gusty and unpredictable. Coastal bars dangerous. The Bureau S already issued strong wind warnings for the coastal waters. Those will likely escalate to gale warnings as the system approaches. If your boat S moored, check your lines. Add extra if needed. Make sure it S secure. Now let S talk about what happens after the weekend if the low does develop into a cyclone, or even if it remains a strong tropical low, its track after it passes North Queensland becomes important. The models are suggesting it could continue westward, potentially affecting the Gulf of Carpentaria early next week. The Gulf S a different beast altogether. It S shallow water, which means rapid coastal inundation if you get a cyclone making landfall there. Communities along the Gulf Coast, from Katoomba across to the Northern Territory border, would need to watch this carefully. But we're talking about Monday, Tuesday timeframe. A lot can change between now and then. There is also the possibility, and it is just a possibility at this stage, that the low could recurve. That means it tracks west initially, then curves back toward the southeast. If that happens, it brings the system back toward the coast later next week. The models aren't strongly indicating that scenario right now, but at S within the range of possibilities. That S, while you keep watching the updates. Don T make decisions based on one forecast, then stop paying attention. The Bureau will issue warnings as needed. Tropical cyclone watch, tropical cyclone warning, severe weather warning, flood watch, flood warning. Each has a specific meaning and time frame. A watch means conditions are favourable for the development or approach of a cyclone within 24 to 48 hours. A warning means a cyclone is expected to affect the area within 24 hours. Pay attention to these distinctions. They redesign to give you time to prepare and act. Across the rest of Queensland, outside the immediate impact zone, you are looking at increased shower and thunderstorm activity. The low S circulation extends well beyond its centre. That draws moisture inland. Southeast Queensland from Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast, you'll see scattered storms through the weekend. Some could be severe with heavy rain and strong wind gusts, but you are not in the main firing line for this system. Central Queensland, from Mackay down to Rockhampton, you are on the southern fringe. You will cop some rain, particularly Sunday and Monday, but totals will be lower than what North Queensland sees. Still, any rain is welcome. York Peninsula in South Australia, it's been crying out for rain. Bone dry, according to reports. This system one to help you, You are too far south and the moisture one to reach that far inland. Western Australia, you're in a different weather pattern entirely. A series of troughs and fronts moving through, bringing showers to the southwest. Perth and surrounding areas will see scattered rain through the weekend, with temperatures in the mid to high 20s. That is pleasant compared to the heat you had last week. Victoria and South Australia are seeing cooler conditions after a warm spell. That southerly change that moved through earlier this week dropped temperatures significantly. Melbourne went from 32 degrees to the low 20s. That's the kind of temperature whiplash that has people feeling crook. Flu, headaches, sinus issues. Your body struggles to adjust when temperatures jump around like that. Tasmania S already into cooler conditions. Overnight minimums below zero in some areas. Frost across the northern suburbs of Hobart. That cold air is well established down south. As the week progresses, that cold air will start pushing north again, affecting mainland southeastern states. For New South Wales, you're re-watching two things. First, the remnants of this tropical system. If it moves west into the interior and then curves southeast, it could bring moisture into northern New South Wales later next week. That is a big if, and at S too early to have confidence in that scenario, but at S worth being aware of. Second, you've got potential for thunderstorm activity across the ranges and western slopes through the weekend. Nothing organised, just typical summer storm activity, heavy rain in localised areas, gusty winds, maybe some small hail, the usual. Sydney S been waiting for decent rain. Dam levels are getting low. This weekend, 1T deliver the widespread soaking you need. Maybe some scattered showers, but nothing substantial. The pattern needs to shift to bring consistent rainfall to the Sydney Basin. That S not happening in the immediate future. Back to the tropical low. Let's put this in perspective. We're not talking about Cyclone Yasi. That was 2011, Category 5. Sustained winds over 200 kilometres per hour. Massive damage from Tully to Cardwell. That was an extreme event. One of the most powerful cyclones to cross the Queensland coast in recorded history. We're not talking about Cyclone Larry either. That was 2006, Category 5 at landfall near Innisfail. Destroyed banana plantations, devastated Innisfail Township, caused over $1.5 billion in damage. This system, even if it develops into a cyclone, one to reach those intensities. The atmospheric conditions aren't there for rapid intensification. The track keeps it close to the coast, which limits how much it can strengthen. What we were looking at in a worst-case scenario is a Category 1 or possibly Category 2 system. That S serious. That requires preparation and caution, but it's S not catastrophic. The risk with any tropical system isn't just the peak intensity, it is the cumulative impacts. Rainfall flooding can be just as dangerous as wind damage. Storm surge can affect coastal communities even if the system doesn't make a direct landfall. The 2011 floods across Queensland weren't caused by a cyclone. They were caused by a persistent weather pattern that dumped enormous rainfall over weeks. Brisbane, Toowoomba, the Lockyer Valley. You remember, flash flooding through Toowoomba that swept away cars and took lives. Major flooding in Brisbane that inundated thousands of homes. That's why rainfall forecasts matter as much as wind forecasts. 200 millimetres might not sound like a lot compared to some of the totals you've seen in past events. But if it falls in a short period, if the catchments are already saturated, if drainage systems can cope, you get flooding. Urban flooding, riverine flooding, flash flooding, each creates different hazards. For those in Cairns and surrounding areas, you are likely looking at intermittent heavy rain from Saturday afternoon through Monday morning. Roads will be slippery, visibility reduced, creek crossings dangerous. If you don't need to drive, Don T, if you do need to drive, take it slow, turn your headlights on and never drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That is the SES message, and it is worth repeating because every year people ignore it and end up stranded or worse. Townsville, URE far enough south that impacts will be less severe, but you'll still see heavy rain periods and gusty winds. Magnetic Island could cop some rough weather, particularly on the eastern side. If you're planning to take the ferry across, check whether services are running. They'll cancel if conditions are too rough. For those between Cooktown and Cairns, particularly around Cape Tribulation and the Daintree, you are used to heavy rain. The rainforest doesn't exist by accident. But even with that experience, keep an eye on conditions. Roads can wash out. Rivers rise quickly. Communication can be difficult if mobile towers lose power. Further inland, the tablelands will see rain as well, though generally lighter than the coastal strip. Atherton, Mareeba, those areas will benefit from the moisture without the intense rainfall that the coast experiences. That S typical with these systems. The heaviest rainfalls where the onshore flow is strongest right along the immediate coast. Now, some of you might be wondering about longer range patterns. What S driving all this tropical activity? Part of it S just the time of year. January through March is peak cyclone season for northern Australia. Sea surface temperatures are at their warmest. The monsoon trough is well developed. These are the conditions that breed tropical systems, but there are broader influences as well. The Madden-Julian Oscillation, or MJO, has been active in the region. That is a pattern of enhanced convection that moves eastward around the tropics. When it's over the Australian region, it increases the likelihood of tropical cyclone development. We've been in a favourable MJO phase for the past few weeks. El Niño and La Niña also play a role, though we're currently in a neutral phase. Neither pattern is dominant. When La Niña is active, you typically see more tropical cyclones affecting Australia. When El Niño is active, you see fewer. Neutral years can go either way, and this season we're seeing above average activity despite the neutral conditions. The Southern Annular Mode, or SAM, influences weather patterns further south. It affects where those cold fronts track, how far north the cold air masses push. Right now it's in a positive phase, which tends to keep colder air confined to higher latitudes. That's why Southern Australia has been relatively mild and why the cold outbreaks haven have been particularly intense. These large-scale patterns interact in complex ways. Forecasting more than a week or two out becomes educated guesswork. We can identify trends, potential scenarios, but specific timing and intensity are beyond reliable prediction at that range. For the immediate future, though, the next 5 days, we've got reasonable confidence. A tropical low in the Coral Sea, moving generally westward, potential to intensify, heavy rain for North Queensland. Those are the key points. Everything else is detail and uncertainty. If you are in the potential impact zone, stay informed. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. Listen to ABC Local Radio. They'll have the most up-to-date warnings and information. Follow advice from emergency services. If they say evacuate, evacuate. If they say shelter in place, do that. These decisions aren't made lightly. For everyone else, keep an eye on this, but don't panic. Australia is a big country. A tropical low affecting North Queensland doesn't mean the entire nation is under threat. But if you've got family or mates up that way, check in with them. Make sure they're aware and prepared. Looking ahead to next week, beyond this immediate system, the pattern stays active across northern Australia. The monsoon trough will remain in place. More showers and storms are likely. Whether we see another tropical low develop is uncertain, but the potential is there. It's the season for it. Southern states will see a return to warmer conditions by the middle of next week. That cold air that has been dominating Tasmania and Victoria starts to retreat. Temperatures climb back into the high 20s and low 30s across South Australia, Victoria and southern New South Wales. Sydney, you will see a return to proper summer weather. Mid to high 30s possible by Thursday or Friday next week. That warming trend brings increased fire danger. We're still in fire season. The grass is dry across much of southern Australia. Fuel loads are high in many areas after a couple of wet years. When you combine heat, low humidity and wind, fire danger escalates quickly. Keep an eye on fire danger ratings. If it's a total fire ban day, no fires of any kind, no barbecues, no welding, no machinery that could create sparks. This tropical low is the immediate concern, but weather doesn't stop with one system. There's always another front, another trough, another low developing somewhere. That is why regular updates matter. Conditions change. Forecasts evolve as new data comes in. What looks certain today might shift tomorrow. For now, if you're in North Queensland, take this seriously. Prepare your property, stock up on essentials, have a plan, but don't panic. You've dealt with these systems before. You know what to do. This one is worth paying attention to, but it's not the end of the world. Everyone else, stay informed, but get on with your lives. Check the forecast for your area. Be aware of what is happening across the country. But unless you are in the direct impact zone, this system won't affect you beyond maybe some interesting weather patterns to watch. That is the situation as it stands. I'll be watching how this develops and will update as needed. The Bureau will have continuous updates on their website and through warnings. Keep an eye on those. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see how this one